Welcome back to Monkeynomics. We've got a lot to cover for this lesson, so let's get right into it. In the last lesson, we talked about debt management and bankruptcy. This was to free up your income to go to work for you. However, sometimes the problem is simply you don't have an income, or you don't have enough of an income. And even if you are debt-free, you find that you can barely support yourself, let alone get far enough ahead to invest for your future. So today's lesson is going to be about the 3 C's: career planning, college, and capital budgeting. I think everyone will find something useful, although depending on where you are professionally, some things may be more applicable than others. So you may believe that we should start with college, but you'd be wrong. We're going to start at our goal and work backwards, and that means career planning. So before you head off to college, you need to figure out what you want to do for a living. So let's talk about careers in general. The first thing to keep in mind about careers is that people don't pay you to have fun. If the work was fun, people would do it for free. If money is being offered for the job, that means it's not fun, which is why they're paying you. This may seem like common sense, but you'd be amazed at how many people think they're going to turn their hobbies into successful careers. I've got bad news for you. Even if you work in the same industry as your hobby, it won't be the same as participating in your hobby. Here's one example to demonstrate my point. Let's say you're a gamer, and you love playing video games. Maybe you want to turn your hobby into a career and work in the video game industry and make games. Well, here's the thing. Playing video games and programming video games have almost nothing to do with one another. The closest thing to playing a video game as a job is a beta tester. And guess how much beta testers are paid? They're paid nothing, because people will do it for free because it's fun. When you play a video game, it's fun, because it's a non-stop thrill ride of sights, sounds, and interactivity. Programming video games is just typing code for 60 hours a week, and getting fired as soon as the game is complete and hoping to get hired by another studio to do it all over again. So again, the first thing to realize is that careers aren't fun, and hobbies aren't careers. So does that mean you should work at some soul-crushing office job that you hate just for the money? No, absolutely not. Just because work isn't fun doesn't mean it can't be fulfilling. The most important thing to remember is that the amount a job pays is generally related to how difficult the job is to fill. It may be difficult to fill because it requires special training, or because the work is dangerous, dirty, or undesirable for any number of reasons. There's always a trade-off. So here's what I recommend. Start with the job listings and work backwards. Find out what the requirements are for the job that you want, and create a roadmap to get there. If you want a job that requires a 4-year degree, that may be something to look into, but sometimes experience can count in place of a degree. For example, some jobs may require 5 years of experience or a 4-year degree. Now often there's a catch-22 where you can't get a job to get experience without having experience. So in that case, look into unpaid internships. Now let's think about unpaid internships versus college degrees. A lot of people would never take an unpaid internship, but would happily go into debt to go to college. It makes no sense. If they both lead to the same job at the end, the unpaid internship is clearly the better choice. An internship is neutral. It doesn't pay you, but it also doesn't cost you. A college degree doesn't pay you either, but it can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. There's also a myth that a college degree is accepted more than an internship, but they both go on your resume. And as long as you stay in the same industry, it will apply no matter where you go. Even if you apply at a different company, that internship will still reflect as experience in the industry. Now some jobs will simply require a degree, and that's fine. This is just something to think about. Many employers offer tuition assistance benefits. So once you begin your career, you can go to college while your employer picks up the check. However, keep in mind that college degrees are becoming less and less valuable. One of the reasons is that degrees may be years or decades old and completely outdated, especially if it's in technology. Employers look at certifications and recent training. When you compare the price of a degree to the price of in-demand certifications, it's not even close. A degree in IT can cost $30,000, while a certification in A+ programming will cost between $150 to $175 to take the exam. Now it is a hard test, and there are training programs that will help you prepare for and pass the exam. An exam prep book kit will cost around $250, including practice tests. There are videos and personal exam prep classes that will cost anywhere from a few hundred to a few $1,000s. If you have 5 or 6 recent certifications, you will get the job over a college grad with no certifications. and it will only cost you around $1,000 if you're good at self-study and don't require an advanced prep course. That's 1/30th of the cost of a college degree. Maybe 1/30th is too expensive, so let's talk about free certifications. There's a website called Allison.com. Yeah, it's a girl's name, don't ask me why it's called that. Anyway, this website offers free online courses that you can take and pass and add to your resume. Now these courses are not licenses, because licenses require a licensing board and that costs money. However, this is a free resource to get free training and free certifications to add to your resume to get an entry-level job without a degree. They can't offer proprietary training, but they do offer a lot and it's free, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be using this if you're unemployed, underemployed, or just looking to change careers. The link is in the description. If you go through job listings, you should be able to find something within the industry that doesn't require a degree, and thus doesn't require college debt. Once you've got experience in the job, you may be able to negotiate moving up into a job that normally requires a degree within your company, even though you don't have one. Or maybe your employer will pay to help you go to college for free. Either works. So let's talk about college now that we've A, determined that we must have a degree in order to get the job we want, and B, found someone else to pay for it. Here's a handy little fact that's going to save you a lot of time and money. I'm going to link to an article from Business News Daily called "Where Did You Go to College? Employers Don't Care." Link in the description. This article cites a Pew Research survey of employers that reveals that 84% value experience and knowledge in the field, compared to 9% that value a college degree. This doesn't apply for all careers. If you're planning on a degree in law or politics, who you know is very important, and you'll need to attend the right school and be part of the right circles. But if that stuff doesn't matter to you, you can attend community college or even online college, and get the exact same benefits as attending a university at less than half the price. Now, if you're going to do online college, keep in mind the reputation of the college. Some colleges are more respected than others, and generally the more ads you see on TV, the less respected the university. Find a program that's local, ideally one that's attached or similar to a major university. For example, while the University of California is a full-service and very expensive university system, California State University offers several online degrees that are completely online for half the tuition. Now, a savvy employer may know the difference between University of California and California State University, but most don't know and most don't care. Remember that 84% of employers value experience compared to only 9% that value degrees. So if the job is between you and your California State University degree, and the other guy with his degree from the University of California, but you have certificates and an unpaid internship under your belt, you will get the job every single time. Always look for opportunities to allow you to attend college in the evening or online, so that you can focus on work, which is more important in the long run. Fuck the quote-unquote college experience. Especially with all the bullshit about rape culture and the SJWs turning college into the Salem witch trials for any man that runs afoul of their social justice agenda. No good will come from being involved with any of that bullshit. And you especially don't need to be paying money for the privilege of being falsely accused of rape, or being told that you have to attend some mandatory gender justice training because some Tumblrette felt triggered on the internet. Keep your eyes on the prize. Let the feminists and social justice warriors run these colleges right into the ground. You've got more important things to do. Get job experience while you attend college, preferably in your chosen industry, even if it's only an unpaid internship. If you make an impression as an intern, and the company knows you're graduating soon, you will have a firm job offer before you graduate, while all these feminists and SJWs wipe their ass with their gender studies degrees and go on welfare. So let's say you have your tuition paid for, but what about your other living expenses? How are you going to afford food and housing on an unpaid internship? I'm going to link to an article from Business Insider about a Duke University graduate student who lived in his van, went to the gym to take showers, and used the library as his bathroom and to charge the electronic devices. That guy wanted to win, even though he majored in English and history like a fucking idiot. So I hope I've given you some tools to get your foot in the door of the industry you want to work in, and some tips for furthering your education without debt. However, I realize that this information is coming a little late for many of my viewers, and their college days are long gone. So let me share one last tip, which will be very useful if your dreams are to own your own business, or particularly if you're thinking about investing in real estate. I'm going to talk about capital budgeting. So the purpose of capital budgeting is to determine how much a project is worth and how much your profits are worth. I can't tell you how many business owners I've met who think they're making so much money on their business when they really aren't, because they don't understand how this works. I tell them how they can earn up to 10% with investments, and they tell me they're earning triple that from their business. I call absolute bullshit because most industries have profit margins lower than 10%. I'll provide a list of the most profitable industries from SageWorks in the description, but here they are along with their profit margins. Accounting, tax preparation, bookkeeping, and payroll services, profit margin of 19.8%. Legal services, profit margin of 17.8%. Oil and gas extraction, profit margin of 16.4%. Commercial and industrial machinery and equipment rental and leasing, profit margin of 16.4%. Office of dentists, profit margin of 14.9%. Lessors of real estate, profit margin of 14.1%. Offices of physicians, profit margin of 14.1%. Offices of real estate agents and brokers, profit margin of 14.1%. Offices of other health practitioners, profit margin of 12.6%. Managers of companies and enterprises, profit margin of 12.6%. Outpatient care services, profit margin of 11.7%. Other schools and instruction, profit margin of 11.3%. Activities related to real estate, profit margin of 10.8%. Death care services, profit margin of 10.7%. Support activities for mining, profit margin of 10.5%. Now, as you can see as you get closer to the end of the list, the profit margin is about 10%, which is what you can make on investments passively. Would you rather own a mortuary and make 10.7 but have to do all the work of a business owner, do the bookkeeping, work 60 to 80-hour weeks, and hang out with corpses all day? Or would you rather sleep in and play World of Warcraft all day and make only a 0.7% less profit difference? Now these are only averages, so to calculate your business or project's profit margin, we'll be using something called a capital budget calculator. This works great if you invest in real estate, but it also works if you're planning on buying or starting a business. I'll provide a link to a calculator in the description and walk you through how to use it. So let's say that we're real estate investors and we want to know how much profit we'll be making by buying a property for $300,000 today, holding it for 10 years, renting it out for about $2,000 a year profit, and then selling it on the 10th year for $600,000. Okay, so for period 0, we're going to put negative $300,000 because we're spending $300,000 in order to purchase the property. This is our starting cost. If you're buying an existing business or franchise, you would put all the costs in your period 0 as well. For period 1, let's say we renovate the house to bring up its market value. We are also liable for property taxes, but we don't have a tenant yet, so we're just going to have to eat those costs, which will total $50,000. So in period 1, we put negative $50,000. For period 2, let's say we find a tenant, and minus maintenance and property taxes, we receive $2,000 in profit a year. So for period 2, we put $2,000. For periods 3 through 9, let's keep the $2,000 profit, but let's increase it by $200 a year to symbolize raising rent to offset inflation. For period 10, we sell the house for $600,000. Now if you total everything up, we made $621,600, and we spent $350,000 for a total profit of $271,600. This is listed as a net present value or NPV. If we adjust for inflation by putting 3% in the required rate of return, we can see that $271,600 shrinks to $116,102.47 in inflation-adjusted dollars after 10 years. Now what's more important than the inflation-adjusted profit is the internal rate of return. You see, turning $350,000 into $621,600 is pretty impressive, but it took 10 years to do it. And as we learned from the time value of money, time is the most important factor in building wealth. This property actually only returned an equivalent interest rate of 6.1% over the course of the entire 10 years. That's not that impressive. That's pretty easy to do, and real estate is very risky as the 2008 crash has shown. So you're taking a lot of risk for a pretty unimpressive return when you think about it. But because the payoff happens all at once, while the costs are spread out over a longer period, people think they're getting a better deal than they really are. For example, if rather than buy and renovate the property with that $350,000, the investors just instead invested it in stocks, they could have earned 10% on average for 30 years instead of 6.1%. They also would have had no tenants to worry about, no calls at 3 a.m. because the water heater is leaking, no worries about deadbeat tenants destroying your property after you evict them, none of that. Being a landlord isn't an investment, it's a job. Now some people will argue that stocks are risky, and could temporarily lose value, but your property can sit vacant if you can't find a tenant, and you're still stuck paying property taxes. You don't pay taxes on your investments until you sell, but you still pay property taxes every year even if the building is empty and burning a hole in your wallet. Also, it's nearly impossible to go bust in stocks if you're properly diversified. Even if some of your companies do end up going bankrupt, you own so many hundreds or thousands of them it's really not a big deal. However, if you own only 3 rental properties or 3 McDonald's franchises or whatever, and one of them goes bankrupt, that's 33% of your assets. And unlike my stocks that might recover in a few years as long as I don't sell them, your failed business is ruined and you're fucked. The money is just gone, and I hope you had insurance. So the next time someone tries to get you to start or buy a business or invest in real estate, use the capital budget calculator to see what your internal rate of return is. Make sure you're getting a good deal and taking into account the time value of money, instead of focusing too much on that big payoff and forgetting about the interceding years along with the huge risks you're taking. So that's it for this video. As always, if there's something you'd like to know more about, let me know in the comment section. Please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.